It wasn't a particularly good year last year for AIM stocks, but one of the companies that won out and indeed was one of the best performers on the markets last year was Empire Metals. It's an exploration and resource development company focused in on the Pitfield project in Western Australia, something that's geographically and politically an astute place to be. It has a globally significant titanium project in which it's moving ahead with. Sean Bunn is managing director and an owner of shares in the company. He joins us now. Sean, welcome. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to a company who represents such a big gain on the market last year in what was a very difficult year's trading. More on the share price in just a minute. Give us an update of what you've been doing, because we last spoke a couple of years ago. A lot of water's passed under the bridge since then. And we'll take a look at the share price, I say, in just a moment, but it describes more about what's been happening at the company. Update us on some of the progress.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Look, I'll set the scene by saying, towards the start of last year, we were focused on getting drill rigs up to Pitfield. We'd identified what was a giant mineral system. It's 40 kilometres long, 8 kilometres wide. We've tracked it something like 5 kilometres down into a big sedimentary, soft rock basin. And then we got our maiden drilling program away and found this was full of titanium mineral. So since then, we've just literally been fast tracking. We've gone at light speed, to be honest. I've had diamond rigs up there just before Christmas. We've collected metallurgical and mineralogical samples. We've done another RC drill program, reverse circulation. We did 40 holes, 6,000 meters, and all of that was sort of flowing through to the market over that Christmas period, and certainly our share price, I think, reflects, the smarter punters out there are starting to see that this is truly a world-class, giant mineral type full of titanium, system.
Yeah, look, let me just quickly remind, me as much as anybody else, but those watching this interview, what do we use titanium for? Why is it so important that we get this out of the ground?
Well, look, titanium is on the critical mineral or metals list of all the major, world companies. Like, the major use of titanium is in paints and pigments. So it's a product that has, enormous penetration into first world countries like the US, Europe, UK, Japan and Australia, where these sort of critical, high-grade pigments are very important for the production industry. It's used in plastics. As I said, it's used in paints, high-quality paints, and it's used in a lot of other coating facilities. And titanium metal is a very hard, lightweight but very durable metal that's used in aircraft undercarriage. It's used in jet propulsion. It's a sort of a much better quality product than, say, steel for these types of industries.
Yeah, look, you talk about an unprecedented discovery in the recently released mineralogical and met results. You're a specialist in this area. Try and break it down into layman's terms as to how important this really is and what it is that you've found, and how do we sort of prepare the development of this mineral under the ground so that we can start to look at ways of getting it out.
Well, firstly, let's look at some of the real key factors. First, giant scale. Now, this is an enormous mineral system. Secondly, high grade. We're tracking anywhere between 5 and 10% titanium dioxide in the ground, in the raw, and in every drill hole from surface to bottom, every meter of every drill hole has intercepted this high grade titanium. So we're starting with an enormous advantage in that sense, that we've got a much better grade than the mineral sands producers, and we've got a soft rock sedimentary basin, relatively easy to mine and extract, the beneficiate, if you like, the titanium minerals. What we've just announced this week, however, is that the dominant mineral is a mineral called titanite. Now, titanite is a titanium calcium silicate mineral, and it's not rare. It's not, or not extremely rare, but what is very unusual, what is unique about Pitfield is that 67% of all the titanium dioxide in the ground is associated with this mineral, where typically it might be 2 or 3%. So we've got this unique mineral system full of a mineral that is relatively easy to extract. It's a mineral that will dissolve in dilute acids at low temperatures. And once we get a beneficiation process optimized and start to extract the titanium from that titanite mineral, I'm very confident that we will be able to produce what we would regard as a very high grade titanium dioxide product. Now, approaching 100% TiO2, which is something that would put it into equivalent to a rutile product. So very exciting. I mean, all of that is really what sets Pitfield apart. Scale, grade, not difficult mining. It's in a fantastic jurisdiction, close to port, and we have a mineral system that I think will require, very little, effort to encourage the titanium to come out.
It sounds from what you're saying, you're fairly confident it's going to be commercially viable. When will we know the viability of this? Presumably you're going to be doing some sort of economic assessment and analysis of the economics of the whole project. When will we know more?
Well, we're certainly fast tracking through this process. We've put together what I think is a world-class team of industry experts. We've got 2 technical experts who've been working in the titanium industry, near on 40 years each. We've just recruited and starting now our process development manager, who has 20 odd years experience, a metallurgist with vast experience at the beneficiation, hydrometallurgical testing of these sorts of new processes, these new ores. So I've got the team here ready to go. What's going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months is the testing. We've got all the metallurgical samples we need coming out of the diamond drilling. And I would expect that we would be able to get into process design and some of this early economic assessment, by the end of the year. And the plan, and we've announced this in our recent, release this week, the plan will be go straight to a demonstration plan. And I think that's another critical point to raise here, Jeremy. You can do all the studies in the world. You can do all the theoretical analysis. You can do the engineers, and they can all come in and give you their expertise or thoughts or opinions. But the reality is titanite is not known to be found in this quantity anywhere else in the world. It's not been commercially developed as a source of titanium historically because of that, not because it's difficult to treat, not because it's expensive to treat. It just doesn't ever occur in these sort of quantities. So here we are, brand new technology coming together, a completely unique ore system, and I think all those economics, all those fundamentals will be something that we'll have much more news, much more to say on that as the year unfolds.
Yeah, you talk about the relative ease of extraction and so forth, and the fact you're producing something that's going to be relatively easy to produce into the final product that will be presumably sold to off-takers. But what about the amount of money you have on the balance sheet to sustain the cost of getting you to where you need to be to start looking at viable production? How strong is the balance sheet for this year's operations?
Well, what I can say about that is that towards the end of last year, we announced that we had, all of our work programs up to the end of the calendar year was fully funded. We raised £3 million in September last year, and then we've done another placement in January of another £3 million. So we are, and as we announced at that point, we're fully funded for the rest of this year. All the work programs, the drilling, the metallurgical testing, to pull this whole team together and get as far down the track by the end of this year to design a demonstration plant. Yep, it's all done. We're ready to go. So, I'm really looking forward to just now putting our head down and keep the momentum. It's
It sounds really exciting. Let me just quickly overlay what you're saying in terms of the share price chart, because I said at the top that you've been one of the best performing AIM listed stocks. The share price chart I've drawn here goes back to 2021, but I've drawn two vertical red lines on this. One is the beginning of 2023, and one is the end of last year. And it was in the context of what was a dire year last year for AIM stocks generally. It was a tremendous performance. I think actually you were telling me off camera that I think you were the second best performing AIM stock last year, I think, if that's correct. But we sent subsequent to that even further gains, all the way up to 13.3 pence. We've seen some money taken off the table recently. What's being priced in at these levels? What do you consider to be the value of the company that you're presenting as an investment opportunity here against what we got in terms of share price?
Well, that's what I think we have to point to, and we keep pointing out to our investors and our shareholders in the market, is that there is not a huge amount of money to be thrown at this particular project over the next 12 months, in the sense that we're not having to do detailed drill outs of the ore body. We've already identified two very high grade zones that we think will yield potentially where the mine development could proceed. They're near surface targets, they're high grade, and it's not going to cost a lot of money to drill those out in the next 12 months. So the money that we have available is all going into the process development side. We're not going to rush around and do feasibility studies prematurely. We'll get focused on building the demonstration plant. So when you think about this, for a relatively small additional investment, we can change the profile of the company from just being an exploration play with an unusual, albeit very large scale, titanium system. We can convert that to, this thing is, we've proved the efficacy of the process. We've made product. We can demonstrate the value of that product. This thing could be worth, I wouldn't want to put a figure on it, but, people can do their own sums. But we have a massive supply of titanium in the resource, and titanium industry is growing rapidly. I mean, the titanium market is forecast to hit $50 billion, $52 billion by 2030, next 6-7 years. So, I mean, that's an enormous growth and upside potential for a developer like us to come into and supply that market.
I'm hearing from a lot of chief executives and managing directors I talk to about the fact that they bemoan the fact that their share price gives an undervaluation of the company. I think that's my interpretation of what you're saying, is the fact there's opportunity here. On that basis, do you consider yourself to be a takeover target? I'm, again, talking to a lot of CEOs who have to look over their shoulder constantly, because they represent good value for people with deep pockets to buy the shares. Are you vulnerable? Do you have any? Are you constantly being badgered for discussions about being taken over, or what's the position on this? What do you feel about the outlook for the company?
Well, I think we are still sitting in this sort of unique, it's very, because we're so unusual, because we're an outlier. Nobody's ever seen anything like this before. It sort of creates, I think, an impression amongst some of the majors that this is either not real, but, we keep drilling, we keep finding it, or they want to sit back and see where we take it. I don't imagine, I don't see a lot of, bigger mining companies storming over the hill at the moment and trying to, get their hands on this particular project. I think they're all sitting back and watching, trying to get a feel for what this really is. But once that penny drops, once the demonstration plant is fired up, once the process is proven, and once we start walking around with drums of a high-grade titanium dioxide product, I mean, that's going to change everybody's perspective of this particular project. So I'd certainly be thinking about circling the wagons,
Yeah.
sometime later next year.
Just so I was going to say, so you said later this year. Do you have a rough date in mind, or are you not able to disclose anything about dates and timings?
The timing is always going to be uncertain. We can't pin down a point in time in the next 12 months where we'll actually be able to start, something like a demonstration plant. So there's a sequence of steps that we have to go through. There's the process development side, the testing, but there's no reason for this to be, there's no delays foreseen. There's no uncertainty about the fact that we can't just start the work and progress through it without hiccups. We've got the metallurgical samples, we've got the laboratory facilities underway. We're basically creating our own sort of pilot testing laboratory setup, and we've got the staff to drive it. So there's all the planning, all the preparation's been done over the last few months. We're ready to go. Okay. And just on that note, I really, you'd have to sort of have a big hard think about how many companies have been able to achieve that in less than 12 months. In fact, just on 10 months since the first, the discovery. It's we can't possibly have moved any faster.
Well, we look forward to hearing more. And Sean, keep us up to date. When you got news and you got some breaking headlines to talk about, let's get back together again and we can discuss more about this and look to see just how the market develops for Empire Metals. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jeremy.
That's Sean Bunn. He's the managing director of the Western Australia-based Pitfield project, Empire Metals, an AIM-listed stock, which has done so well at the back end of last year, waiting on news later on this year for further developments.